Locked in my room, 4 black walls, tied the noose, no recall, no result, fuck withdrawal, rather shoot up till I fall. Murder on call with the 5-9, 20 years and it seemed like a lifetime. I've been hanging every day from a lifeline, why these fuckers hit a dinner every night?
After training, there was like a teacher at the gym, and I'd go home and my dad would be like, what happened? What was the problems? And I'd try to remember, and I'd be like, oh, these are the problems that happened. I got this, I didn't get this. And then at dinner, my dad would be like, oh, you gotta do this. You gotta do this. Don't let the guy do this. So I learned most of my jiu-jitsu while eating dinner with my dad. You know, it wasn't really like a coach sitting there telling me what to do while we were training. And so that's how I learned a lot of my jiu-jitsu. That's why I think problem solving is the next step for anybody. Like, you have to have problems, and if you don't recognize your problems, even if I told you what to do, you're gonna throw it away. Mm-hmm. So it's important to identify what the problem is and then have a plan to solve it, and then you're gonna get to more problems as it goes. So I learned all my jiu-jitsu basically at dinner. And then I'd go home or I'd go to the next day, and I would instantly be that I could notice the difference. You know, the little pep talk my dad gave me at dinner, I'd come back, and then some days somebody would be giving me a tough time with something for months, and then one day I'd figure it out, and all of a sudden it was problem solved. So that was the case all the way up until brown and black belt, and then brown belt my dad moved to Brazil, so there was no more pep talks, and then I had to figure everything out for myself. So at 17 years old, my dad was already in Brazil, so for 10 years he was in Brazil. Talking over the phone was not the same. We couldn't like really learn anything as much as it was like when I was like seeing him and explaining. So then I kind of lost that sense of security of like having somebody solve my problems. And then I had to solve my own problems because there was no one else to help me. So I started to develop, even though my dad gave me the foundation to understand what I needed to do. After he left is when I started to develop my own way to solve my own problems. So because I had a foundation and I had learned so many good, solid, foundational things, when he left, at first, for the first year or two, it was like being left out in the open water. But then I started to trust and to learn and to research and to feel and to like, at that time there was no internet. When I say research, I mean like trying things out at the training. So then I got really good at understanding jiu-jitsu and making myself better and making myself train the way I need to train and position myself. And from that point on, it was me on my own. From 17 till, to be honest, that it just became I became my own coach. Of course, I had people that I would ask questions to, and like there'd be times where people would help me with certain things, but I became my own problem solver for a long time, which got me really far, but it also stopped me at a certain point. You know, at a certain point I had nowhere to get better because I had already used up all my resources. So that's why now I'm kind of looking for MMA specifically, to have coaches around, to have somebody help me with this and with that, because I've already kind of done the max I could do with my own brain. You know, you need another brain to kind of give you a different insight. So I would say nothing really changed up until the black belt. After black belt, what changed is I had to kind of be my own head coach and kind of make my own decisions and trust myself and stop blaming anybody else for any kind of any other reason. So at that point, black belt, I kind of started doing a lot more breathing. I kind of started doing a lot more other workouts. I kind of started holding myself more accountable for my own training, and that kind of made me a man to my understanding. You know, I kind of felt like I started to become a man when I started doing all those things. It wasn't just about the jiu-jitsu, it was kind of the discipline around every aspect of my life. And that only happened black belt, you know. Even though purple, brown belt, I was winning all the tournaments, I only really got disciplined, and 5 hours a day for me wasn't enough at black belt, you know. So discipline came at black belt if I'm having some challenges, but if I feel like I don't have the same like motivation and drive to go train with this person. Like this is no more fun. It's just like playing with my food. Then I put one arm in my belt, and now everybody becomes a challenge. Especially in the first 2 minutes, everybody's gonna give me trouble, and then I have to weather the storm, get them out, and then I start getting tired, and I have to do all my moves with one arm. So everything changes. It gives you an immediate challenge. You didn't have to go so far.
Yeah.
It's right here.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. If you want to do something different, you can make a specific training. So outside of that, because that's like really throwing yourself in the fire.
Yeah.
Outside of doing that, you can be more specific and be like, hey, I'm gonna just do arm locks today.
Yeah.
Or I'm gonna just do chokes
Skill
today.
acquisition. But he's talking about the timing, the experimentation, the problem solving, learning all possible reactions and making the little nuance adjustments. This is going to be what gets you like to a high level skill like him, as opposed to let me lift some more weights or, again, eat organic, but like don't expect that that's going to give you the push to the purple or the brown or the black belt. So just kind of reiterating what he's saying,
Yeah, it's endless amounts of training, to be honest. It's kind of like sick. You gotta be sick with training, and the training is the definitely the push. But then also, it's useless if you just make the same mistakes over again. So I would do the relentless training, but then I'd always, at younger age, go to my dad and he'd solve my problems. And then when I didn't have that, at first it was like you have to start a new brain cell to like learn how to think for yourself.
That's right.
But then I had to do that. And then once I did that, now I can kind of do that a lot. With Jiu-Jitsu, like, I have never been to a position in Jiu-Jitsu these days where I'm like, I don't know the answer to that, Not with Jiu-Jitsu. With other things, yes, but with Jiu-Jitsu, I feel like I've solved all my problems, and then I have the ability to, if I don't know the problem or don't know how to solve it, I can find a way to solve it. And that was before I kind of stopped competing. Nowadays, you get all these leg locks. There's a lot of this stuff I haven't been training so much, so I might get stuck. But by the time I stopped competing in Jiu-Jitsu, I felt like I had all the problems solved. Mm-hmm. Then when I stopped competing, my Jiu-Jitsu went completely for MMA. I didn't do Jiu-Jitsu for Jiu-Jitsu anymore. I did Jiu-Jitsu for MMA, so I wasn't worried about a lot of shit that was happening in the Jiu-Jitsu world, because I was like, they're not doing what I'm doing. I need to do what I'm doing. My Jiu-Jitsu is designed for MMA, so that's where I was putting my energy into. So yeah, I fell behind a little bit with the new stuff that's happening, but that's only because I am not trying to do it.
Mm-hmm. Well, like, I think some of the things like you're saying, like, can probably like hit home for some of these people who think like, man, I've been training X years and I suck. And like you're saying, like, I trained till I was like 15 and I sucked and I trained every day. Mm-hmm. And I was attached to the Gracie family and I had all the exposure to all the highest skill or secrets or whatever you want to say. You're like, these motherfuckers beat me up that did train less than a year. So sometimes people get hard on themselves in this room. I know a few of them, and they're like, similar circumstance. It's like they put in half the mat time. It's like if you had the same problems and you did, 100x of what everybody else did, like, you're not, these other people, they're not special. It's like,
I had all the problems.
Stay the course.
Yeah, anybody who's good at anything, they have to go through the same struggles, and that's just with anything. I think that's the case. So there's no one who's like, that's why like somebody who's trained for 5 years isn't going to be able to surprise me with anything. Even though they may think they can, they're not going to like, oh, I'm going to show this new move that I've been working on. And it's like, I've already seen that, so, and that goes for anything. You're not going to surprise Mayweather with a new punch, and he's not going to see it and be able to counter and deal with it. So there's no way you get to a high level at anything without having to go through everything. Everybody has to go through everything. It's just a matter of how far you want to take it. But yeah, I think the biggest thing is problem solving and then training. And then even if you problem solve and you train hard, you still need the experience. You still need the mat time, mileages. Because sometimes I tell the person what to do to beat me, and they train hard, and they still can't beat me. And then sometimes they get good at defending something. I'm like, hey man, because I have training partners, so I have to make them better to get myself better training. So I have to teach them how to be better than me. So I'm like, hey man, get out of the arm lock like this, do this, don't let me come on top, don't let me, and I'm telling them how to get better so that I can train better, so I have a better training partner. And also it keeps him motivated, because if I just fuck him up and don't give him any answers, he's just like, fuck this, you know, like this every day is not helping. So not only is it good for him, but it's the only thing that keeps him coming back, you know. So not only do I have to get a better training partner out of him by teaching him, but that's the only thing that's gonna maybe keep him coming back, because even if you do, they might get discouraged anyway. So I always try to make, first I try to beat my training partner. But then once I beat them, then I have to teach them and keep them better and keep them getting better. And then as they get better at escaping. I have to get better at switching. And that's why my game is designed to switch, you know, because I do an attack, you're good enough to learn the defense. I gotta switch it up. What they might not ever get is the capacity to switch as much as I do. That takes a lifetime.